What's up, everybody? Welcome to the PixelPlay Podcast, the only podcast where we never have three people on the show all at the same time. My name is Adam, aka CS Radical, joined as always by Jen and Chris, the usually most likely second person to show up at this point. Kaylan, obviously, now the proud dad of two children now, is off this week and probably will be for this foreseeable future as well. It may pop in here and there, but seems like he's going to be out of commission for a little while to, I don't know, be a responsible adult, I guess.
Probably.
No wonder he's never on the show. This doesn't jive very well with a gaming podcast.
True, being a responsible adult? No, never.
So, I'm sure at the same time he's probably already dead from the lack of sleep that you probably get from being a dad. But, hey, speaking of death, there's your lungs wishing violence on you this week. How are you doing today?
Yeah, from travel before. I'm sure everybody can hear it in my voice instantly. I am coming off of a cold. I think it was just a cold. I don't know. Could be a flu. I have no idea. But I'm like at that part where it's over, but my body still wants to cough a lot, and my voice is messed up from last week's. Kind of like by Sunday I was good, but I don't know. Like my throat's like, yeah, cool. That was a fun game. Now this is how you're going to be for a little bit. So yeah, my voice is going to be a little weird, and I'm going to be muting to cough a couple times. So everybody can enjoy the video feed of that.
Hooray! And you can always do that on YouTube. Hey, there's a good thing. PixelPlay Podcast on YouTube. We're still waiting for 250 subs for that serial episode, folks. But alas, this week sucks for news. Like, really sucks this week for news. I was telling, there's going to be no recap this week. So instead, I've actually done a gameplay loop or a gameplay video instead. So look for that on the YouTube channel. But that's how dead the news was. Like, I looked all over for decent stories, and the gist that I could get is what happened this week is games came out, things got reviewed, and people got their studio closed, and most of them are not notable studios. So it's cool. The closest to big stories that we had was Sakurai teased his next game, or what could be maybe his last game, and I'm like, okay, but that's not really much to say about. Can't really do much with that. And it's hey, Falcom for their localization team is looking to use AI before humans, come in and fact check everything. And I'm like, that's maybe 2 minutes. All right. So I've got maybe 4 minutes of a recap. Nah, we're not doing that. I mean, there are stories, if I really wanted to, I could pull 4 stories. But do you really want me talking about 4 stories that even I'm I don't care? It doesn't really go very well. And hey, we're not actually a news company here, so if we're going to put something out there, there's going to be a reason for us to do it. And since it's me that's talking about it, it's got to at least be something I can talk about for more than 30 seconds before it sounds like I'm just reading off a page and saying the same 2 things over and over again. To which you're saying, you do that all the time, Adam. To which I go, yes, but I bullshit for 2 or 3 minutes rather than 30 seconds. It's different.
You're committed. You wouldn't see very committed for 30 seconds only. It's just not enough.
Nah, not at all.
No.
Well, I guess that brings us into our, what we've been playing. Well, I guess I might as well say, since I'm going to be putting it out in 2 days on YouTube, I was playing this random game that I've been eyeing for a little bit called Slackers Carts of Glory, to which you go, that sounds like a game. What is that possibly about? Basically a physics racing game about you in a shopping cart. It's Jackass, but it's downhill skateboarding, and it's almost a bit of co-op elements, not in the sense of you control limbs or anything. It's just in the way that it is intentionally designed to be really hard to control well. And,
as it would be if you were actually doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you actually try to go downhill with the shopping cart, you're not going to be doing much in the way of steering. So basically,
first turn, you're dead. There's
you're really just going yeah, I'm gonna go down really fast. Oh, I'm dead. And that's basically that game in a nutshell. But essentially, it's just a game of you in a shopping cart, either alone or with friends, racing down a track. They're usually anywhere between, there are some courses you can do in under 20 seconds if you're really fast, but most of the time you'll go at most a minute per course if you do a run successfully without getting knocked off. There are shortcuts. Good luck trying to do them at speed without, crashing, but there are shortcuts. And the only real thing that you got to worry about is that there are basically cans of beer on the track that kind of give you more boost. Now, you can still keep spamming the A button as much as you want, and you'll still get a bit of a boost, but it seems like I don't know if it's not a healthier boost, like it just doesn't give you a better traction turning or anything. And it's just, hey, here's a track, see if you can figure out how to actually turn effectively at speed in this. And you go, sure, that sounds easy. 27 deaths later, oh, it's not. It's not at all.
No, this footage looks so frustrating. Like, I want to try it, but oh my god.
Like, I tried it out before I recorded the video because I'm like, okay, I got to see if it's at least something I can do for a half hour. And I played the first course and I'm like, I don't get this at all. This is weird. I'm not sure if I like this. But the more and more I kept playing it, the more that I'm like, fuck, this is fun even though I suck at it. It's just one of those things where it's like, do you remember the Trials games, the motorcycle, like, technical games? How
Yeah, actually,
they're really fucking hard, but it's always fun to watch your character ragdoll. Yeah, that's basically this with shopping carts.
Yeah, the Trials games are actually so much fun. I love those so much. Oh my god.
And really,
So
and when you do something well, it feels fucking fantastic. Like, you feel like a genius when you're able to either make a really good turn, like actually get through a shortcut without, either crashing or hitting the grass where it slows you down. There are little bits here. Like, I've platinumed, when in the video I got about halfway through the game, so I still haven't finished it, but I platinumed the first two, which I was pretty proud of, and then I proceeded to not get remotely close after that.
Yeah, sounds about right.
It eventually started getting to the point it's like, all right, can we gold this? And then it changed to, can we finish it?
This is ridiculous. I'm looking at this footage and I want to try it so bad, but also, like, I don't want to be this frustrated.
Man,
I can just tell.
If this was a game on Game Pass, like, this would be fantastic.
Yes, this is definitely a Game Pass game for sure. Absolutely, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, apart from that, I'm still slowly pushing away at Bloomtown. I finally got together with my significant other and played a few more levels of Astrobot, so I finally started making some progress in there again. I started understanding what you meant by some of the harder things, where you get to, like, say like the first one being the triangle set of missions.
Yeah, the triangle, square.
So the first one
cross.
sucked. The second one, I was like, okay, a couple of tries, and then I aced the last two, and just like boom, boom, done. I'm like, oh, so I just picked the hard one first. Got it.
Yeah, they're not all hard, and
It's
that's what's
the
actually
one that I
more
was struggling
frustrating.
with was one where it was all glass bottoms.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
Yeah,
I
that
remember
took a
that
while.
one.
All the others were not too bad, but the glass one, yeah, that took some time.
Yeah, there's one to me that was the worst one, and I'm not going to tell you what it is because you'll get there one day.
Oh,
and you'll be like,
I'm sure I'll figure it out when it happens.
Oh, you will.
I literally was saying to my girlfriend, I was playing this, like, Chris was mentioning these levels. I think I found one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, they're frustrating because they're not all that hard, but it's just like some of them are. Because like you said, like you did one, it was like, okay, two were easy, and then one was just really hard. It's like, damn it. At least be consistent, so I'm not worried going in. Is this going to be hard or not?
And I will say first, I don't know if they do it in more levels. I assume they do, because usually power-ups will show up again at some point. But I really like the level where it introduces you to the mouse power-up where you can shrink.
Yeah.
That level was so well designed.
Oh, yeah.
It was really, really fun to play. But yeah, I'm just slowly kind of trudging away at a few things here. I keep eyeing Metaphor ReFantasio because I really, really want to fucking play it before the year's done. But it's still $93.49, and I can't justify $100 for a game right now.
No, it's a lot. That's like Rebirth was that price. Like there's some new AAA games that have been that price, but they're still very alarming to me when I see those numbers. So for there to be a game where it's like, I could take that risk, but I don't know. That's a lot of money for a game.
It's like, look, I could review one game that'll take me 100 hours to do, or I can pay about the same amount of money, play like 4 games that are almost the same length in total between all 4 of them. And I can look like I actually play video games, unlike Kaylan, who finishes like 3 games a year. Although apparently, as we found out in the Discord today, he finished Outlaws. So you know what? I wasn't wrong. He did have all this extra time to finish some games, so clearly he's got time for more, right?
Yep. It's confirmed here, everyone. When you have a kid, it's actually a vacation.
Right? That's how I've always understood it.
Angry comments.
But apart from that, what have you been up to lately?
So because I was sick, Excuse me. I've actually been playing a lot of things. I actually have played 3 or 4 games.
So you're pulling a me this week.
I absolutely am. So the first one that I'll mention, I don't have anything new to say, but I did finally finish Aiden Chronicles 100 Heroes. Fully done. Got the ending. Did everything I could do. Got the achievements I could get realistically before I was like, I'm not breeding 10
Messed
different
around in the theater for at least like 50 different plays.
Yeah, like I didn't for that. I got all the characters. To me, I 100%ed the game, and all the achievements I had left was like so much. I can't. There was so many things I just could not do. But I love that game. Obviously, one of my contenders for Game of the Year for sure. It's right up there for me, like Sea of Stars is and Chained Echoes and stuff. Like they are the JRPGs that I'm actually going to hold on to. And it's funny because they're a lot more indie-like than AAA, obviously, in the scene, which is so good. After that, I played 2 games that you'll actually be quite interested in. Actually, 3. So one of them is, I think you may have suggested this to me, Pico Quest. It's
Yeah.
Picross and a JRPG.
Yeah.
So that it was on sale for like $2. I was like, I normally buy coffee and I've been at home sick. I might as well, instead of buying a coffee I didn't get, I'll do that.
I love that a lot of games are using like other concepts to be a JRPG. Like there's also Peglin, which is Peggle but a JRPG.
Oh yeah. I'd have to get that for sure. This one's good. The only thing that is a little rough, besides my voice, is there's a timer. So because you're fighting enemies, there's kind of that active time bar until they attack you. And then when they attack you, you only have 3 hearts, and it may do half a heart or a full heart of damage. In Picross that I'm used to, some puzzles take 40 minutes. Like I'm spending so much time because it's so big. And the thing is that the puzzles are getting more difficult. I'm like 30 or 40% done the game. It has a little progress thing because as you go through the world map, but it's getting harder. And it seems like the timers aren't getting nicer. So it's like, I gotta get like, I still have been able to finish everything, but it's been like a little stressful. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish it with the skills that I currently have. So that's weird. Another one that you would like is I started playing that Inscription game, the one that you had mentioned. Did you get through all the different acts as the game changed, or did you just? Okay,
I finished that game.
I'm only right. I'm actually very close. I think halfway through the 3rd act, where now all of a sudden you're chained to the table and it's the computer enemy. That game, I thought it was just the cabin thing, the Act 1. I thought that was the whole game. So when I was beating it, I was like, perfect. Look how quickly I was able to knock off a game off my list. And all of a sudden, I reset it and I'm in Act 2 and it looks like a Game Boy game. And I'm like, what is happening? Dang it, it keeps going. But I'm in Act 3, and I am really, really still liking the game. I like that each act is a completely different play style. Same idea where it's a card game, but it changes and stuff. I would say Act 1 is still my favorite, the being locked in the cabin, trying to figure out how to get out and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was really, really cool. But obviously Act 2 is very nostalgic and Act 3 is very cool as well. I'm loving the game. It can be a little frustrating, especially in Act 3. It's more like in the first act, it's very much like a roguelite. Like if you die, you have to start over again kind of idea. Where in Act 3, when you die, you just go back to the last checkpoint, which is fine. But I find that some of the enemies are so hard that I have to do the same card battle like 10 times in a row before I finally beat that one. And then I have to get to the next checkpoint. So it can be a little frustrating, but I do really, really, really enjoy the game. It's a lot of fun. 1 second, I'm going to take a swig of water. So
how dare you? How dare you take a swig of delicious water?
There we go. The last game, though, I played is one that just came out and I just picked up, which is the new, what the fuck? What's it called? To the Moon. That series. They have a new one. To the Moon, or just a To the Moon beach episode.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Very typical, To the Moon kind of idea, right? That game wasn't very long. I was able to get through it, beat it. in probably 3 or 4 hours. Very typical to the moon. But fantastic as always. Like, it starts off where you're not fully sure what's going on, then you kind of clue in, and then you get to like the end of the game where it just punches you as hard as it can in the gut a few times. Oh my god. Yeah, really, really, really good game.
Why would I want to get punched in the gut?
Because it's emotions and they feel good. I felt sad. I definitely felt sad. But it's really, really good. The only thing I suggest, excuse me, and I'm sorry, I should have muted for that, is make sure you play the previous games before this. It is a continuous story, and without the previous story stuff, some of this won't make sense. So this isn't like a hop into the last one and you'll totally get it. The emotions also won't hit the same, I would say, too. But amazing game. Lots of little Easter eggs, too. Really, really, really good.
Definitely got that like RPG Maker flair to it.
Yeah, because I think it is made in, or originally was. It might be their own engine now, but it definitely has all the sounds from RPG Maker and stuff from other RPG Maker games that I own. Yeah, but yeah, I highly suggest it. Very, very good. Lots of Easter eggs, lots of emotions, pure story, obviously. And yeah, just delightful and nice and short, which is something I love. I love being able to like pick up a game, especially like a series that I have loved since it came out, and be able to like actually finish it in like a realistic amount of time.
Well, we move on from, obviously talking about JRPGs that are good and talking about games that, aren't that long. Seems like a great spot to just kind of bring up out of nowhere because, hey, Kaylan's not here to stop us. Final Fantasy. And it's not for any particular reason, like we said. There's really not that much to talk about. We're going to have a side quest for Monday that's going to be about Sean Layden's comments about AA games being gone, which... that'll be a fun conversation to have because I don't understand where he's getting that information from. But hey, we'll look into that on the side quest for Monday. But for now, well, we got nothing else to talk about. And we've been jokingly saying how there's going to eventually be an episode where we just bash Square for an hour. I don't see any reason not to do it here. Now, again, not to say that that if we do a whole episode on Final Fantasy as a franchise, that means we're going to be bashing the entire time. That's not going to be the case at all. Because Final Fantasy, obviously, to us, the reason we keep talking about it is because, well, it's left a pretty goddamn massive impact on us over the years. One of the first games that I remember, like, desperately clinging on to was Final Fantasy II, which at the time was Final Fantasy II, but actually was Final Fantasy IV because, well, Japan was like, hey, we... are going to give you guys Final Fantasy IV because it's actually relatively easy, all things considered, for a JRPG. And, yeah, we forgot to give you the other two. And it's not that we forgot to give you the other two. 2 and 3 are just, you Americans, because specifically they were always referring to Americans. You Americans are too fucking stupid. So we're not going to give you the games that we think are hard. And we're just going to give you baby JRPGs. So here's Final Fantasy II. Don't worry about the naming structure. We won't talk about that for another 10 years. And look forward to the next game, which will be Final Fantasy III. And that will totally be correct in the order again. And will never change. And
yeah, and then release 7.
Yeah, and then release 7. And we're like, did you just jip us 3 games?
That's when I found out.
Was Mystic Quest... Should Mystic Quest have been a number? Is
yes.
Tactics and like what's going on? No, it's a complicated thing that Square's done over the years. At the time, it was Squaresoft, so that's how old that would have been. Those games, like, I still look fondly of. Obviously, I've said it on the show before. I was really big for a while in the free enterprise community, which is a Final Fantasy IV randomizer. I have dabbled a little bit in Worlds Collide, which is the 6 randomizer. Mystic Quest, once in a blue moon, I will always pop in and kind of mess with because it is such a chill little game to play. It is baby's first JRPG, but people sometimes use that as like a negative against it, to which I go, no, that's actually a good thing. We should have more JRPGs that are like that because that gets more people in the door. I don't know why people have to play this part of the equation, but hey. And then obviously, like, basically up until really 10-2, 12 maybe, it really was like, it can't go wrong. Sure, 11 didn't work out very well for me because I didn't have friends to play with. And also the idea of paying a monthly fee made not a lot of sense to me or my parents' brain because they were the ones with the credit card back in those days. And also internet back then sucked. So yeah, that was also a fun thing to deal with. But like, I don't know about you, Chris, but like to me, like once you get to about 2003, 2004, you could put Final Fantasy on basically anything at that point. And if it wasn't gold, it was very much a very high quality silver.
Absolutely. Yeah, every single one up until, because you said what, 2003? So that would have been 10? Or maybe
10
even
was
10
originally
too.
2001.
Yeah, that was 2001.
12 was 2006. So if we're basically just saying like mid 2000s is a rough estimate there.
Yeah, it was the gold standard. Like if you picked up a Final Fantasy, it was a zero risk purchase if you were into JRPGs. It was the King of Kings, and it was easily the best. And like you said, I also look at the series very fondly back then. I've been replaying the Pixel remasters or whatever they're called, currently on 5. I love it. Like, they are still so good as games. The music. And you mentioned Mystic Quest, which is actually the first one I ever played through and beat. And it has the best. It's like, I don't know if I want to call it. It's legit
the best battle theme in all of Final Fantasy, and I will fight people on that.
And some of the, like, the final, the Doom Castle or whatever music, like, that music is some of the best Final Fantasy music that's ever been made. And it's just in Mystic Quest. Like, it's not even, like Final Fantasy 7 or some of the big ones, right? So, oh yeah.
It's funny too because here's a crazy stat. The first Final Fantasy that ever released in Europe was 7 because Mystic Quest wasn't even labeled Final Fantasy when it was in Europe. It was just Mystic Quest.
That's so weird.
So technically, the first Final Fantasy game to ever drop in the EU was 7.
They didn't get, like, what? Japan, what were you doing? Square, what were you doing? That's so weird.
I mean, to be fair, we now daily ask Square Enix, what are you doing? What are you trying, like, what? So it's no different. We're just pointing fingers in different directions now.
Yeah, now they're giving everybody all the games, but some of the games, it's like, wait a minute, what? What is this? Yeah. That is true.
Because like starting from the top, I mean, obviously, like I said, the first one for me personally was 4. Did you? Because now that you play the Pixel remaster, did you ever play like the original on NES back in the day?
4?
No, like the OG Final Fantasy on NES.
I tried it. So I used to babysit a kid, and he had a copy. So I used to sit and try and play with him, and I never could get anywhere in it. It was so freaking hard. Maybe they were. Well,
it was also just it was grinding to grind, right?
Yeah. So I tried, like, I would make progress, but it really was just battle, go heal, battle, go heal. Like, yeah, you did not progress without a ton of battles.
Yeah, it's why I'm like super excited with the Dragon Quest remaster because 3 is one of those really old NES ones, and they are very much like not approachable for most people now. I've tried to play the original Dragon Warrior. No. You'd have to pay me at that point. It's just so agonizingly difficult to go through.
I tried that one too, and it was, again, near impossible.
You can say in some ways it's hard, but it's also just because it is so archaic and slow in what it does that it just, when you've played so many now, it's just impossible to do. So thankfully, like the Pixel remasters have settled a bit. I've still got to go back and play these because there's a bunch I haven't finished. So like off the top of my head, I know I haven't finished 1, 2, and 3. Obviously, I never finished the original 13. I never started Lightning Returns. I did finish 13 too, which tells you that at least there was one game in there that was worth all of my time. 15 I finished. 16 I quit after about, I want to say, like maybe a quarter of the way through. And then I don't count the online games because you'll never finish them.
Yeah, I've actually finished every mainline Final Fantasy. I've gone through. I obviously went back with some of the ones that weren't released in North America. I needed the PlayStation 1 had those like Final Fantasy Origins and Final Fantasy Anthology and all that kind of stuff.
Where nowadays it's like, oh my god, never play those copies because having loading times on timed battles and that is just so.
Yeah, it was
so
brutal.
Insane.
It was brutal. But that was the first time I beat 1 and 2, and then 3. The first time I beat that is when they brought that to DS. There was like that 3D one. Pixel Remaster is the first time I actually played Final Fantasy 3 in like its original-ish format. Because obviously it's still a remaster, but at least it's in the original Pixel
I don't
format.
think I've ever played 3 in any shape or form at this point still.
It is a really good one. It's a job system.
Yep.
Which is really cool. And again, honestly, some of the best music in the series. Some of like honestly just like, and it's more like whimsical, like chill kind of vibe kind of music, I would say, in that one. But like so good. So good.
So like when we get into the Super Nintendo games, which is where most of us in our generation are gonna really remember them from, I still am at the point like 4 is fantastic. It's very easy in the end. Like you can get through a lot of the stuff just from basically like even just the tiniest bit of grinding is more than enough. And they do a decent job of actually like leading you in directions that make sense. You're not really ever going to get too lost because mostly everything is kind of cut off and you can only go as far as, you're able to. 6 though, in my opinion, still to this day, and I've gone back and thought about it many, many different times, and I always keep coming back to, I don't think there's a Final Fantasy game before or in the future that can kind of take what that game did and do it better. Because I feel like it's a game that did everything right. You have an amazing soundtrack. It is aged tremendously. The battle system, it has not lagged behind. The side quests are meaningful. Like 90% of the characters are either memorable or have something really good to add. And then there's Gogo and Amaro. Okay, whatever. There's always going to be a couple there. Especially when you're talking, what was it in total? Like somewhere around like the mid-10s. Like maybe like 15 or 16, something like that.
Characters, there was 14.
Oh, yeah. Well, look at you, Mr. I remember numbers. But you got that, and then obviously like the best villain in all of Final Fantasy still to this day, not even close. Yes, Sephiroth fans, it's not even close. And then honestly, like one of the best told stories that we've had in the game's history because it actually takes some risks that most of these games never do.
Yeah, like, oh god, just some of the story moments in that still hit now. When you're going through, like I'm playing, like I said, through the Pixel remasters. I'm currently on 5. I'm just doing it in order. That's why, like, I'm doing it the way I am. I can't wait till I get to 6. Like playing through that. The last time I played through it was the other Steam release of 6, but it's based on the mobile port they made, and they like screwed up the pixel art and stuff. But I can't wait to replay that because it's. My favorite Final Fantasy is technically Final Fantasy 4 because I hold a lot of like memories with it and the music and everything. Like,
yeah, it's in the same way that I still think to this day 10 is my favorite, but I can't say it's the best.
No, 4 is my favorite, but 6 is the best. That is how I kind of see the entire Final Fantasy series still to this day. So they've come out with 16 of these things, plus a bunch of different spin-offs, even direct sequels, remakes, all that kind of stuff, and still. If it comes down to it and it's like pick 2 Final Fantasies you can ever play, I'm picking my favorite 4 and the best one 6. Still to this day.
And like there are moments in that game that like I maybe it's not the same for everybody, but for different Final Fantasy games, like I remember way more impactful moments from 6 than anything else. Like 7, obviously Aerith. 8, Squall getting hit with the ice crystal, the hug in space. 9, like the scene when all the black mages are falling off of the airship. Alexandria. Like there are little things here and there. But 6, I can just rattle off stuff. Phantom Train, the Adoma getting poisoned, the what's the thing I'm looking for? The spot where you're like on the minecart shaft, like trying to escape from the Magitech factory.
Oh, the Magitech factory.
Like that cool shit. The first time that you find Terra in her Esper form and she goes on a mad like flying rampage. Kefka finally, like the ultimate one, Kefka finally winning and splitting the continent in half. The opera, like, and I'm like already like 7 or 8 in, and I can keep going, like just rattle them off. And not a lot of games do that because when like, sure, there is like in any other JRPG, there's downtime. There's time where it's like a little bit of exposition here and there, but like when it goes, it fucking goes.
Yeah. That game does not stop. It is constant, just like hit after hit of story moment. It's crazy they were able to do it, honestly.
And also like so close from, because I think that game came out like a year later from after 4 came out. Because 4 was 91, 6
I think it was 94.
94. Okay, what am I
6
thinking
came
of
out.
time? Oh, it's 5. Duh, I'm thinking of in between that. Let's see. Final Fantasy. You know, it'd be great if I could type Final Fantasy. That would be a fantastic thing to do. So let's see here. So yeah, 4 came out in 92. Final Fantasy. Yeah, so it was 91, then 92 was 5, and then 94 was 6. So like they bashed out 3 incredible JRPGs in 4 years, essentially. That's unheard of now. Like even small indie studios that are doing like these small like JRPGs now, like even at their best couldn't pull that off.
100%. Well, imagine Square releasing a single game every 4 years. Like, it's unheard of just with that. And this is a different time where they had like their one development studio, I assume.
I say that as like I'm looking at the dates. It got even crazier in the PlayStation era. It was 97 for 7, 99 for 8, 2000 for 9, 2001 for 10, 2002 for 11, and then finally there's a big break between 11 and 12 for 4 years. But like they must have had different teams, or at least like they started like it could be a case of like they started pre-production, then as soon as the pre-production was done and the team was starting to work on it, then pre-production was starting for the next one, and then as soon as certain like building blocks happened for 7, then they move on to 8. Like maybe there's some way to the way that they were kind of like scheduling everything, but still, like to pull out that many games in such a small amount of time, it really shows also like that it can be done. But there's also this thing of games have to be so big now, whereas like I'm sure if they made games similar to how these Final Fantasy games were, they could knock those out in 2 years. Like 2 to 3 year cycle, and still like have it be looking graphically gorgeous, but it just is an open world, like walking across the map from one end to the other is going to take you 5 hours sort of like level stuff. Just hammer out some small levels, have your dungeons here and there, and be done with it, and you can get a fantastic game together in 2 to 3 years. Now, granted, there are other things that change now, like voice acting's now a thing in a lot of these games. So like that's gonna add on to stuff, but still, like it really just is crazy to think like just how much they were putting together, and the fact that like 6 was made in such a small window.
Yeah, that is a small window.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just look at the wiki. It started in December of 92, and that release date would have been April of 94. So that was sub 2. That's a year and a half.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, they need to make games like this again. They just need to kind of pull back, because like they are shorter compared to a lot of games now. I know that I've obviously beaten 4. 6 I did beat obviously a couple times. Chrono Trigger, same-ish time, obviously. Square again. They're all like maybe 30 hours at most, and that's even with usually going for everything. Like you can knock these out if you know what you're doing in probably about 20 hours, maybe 25. And it's crazy because it never feels like it's too long. It never feels like it's too short. You could probably actually say that when it's done, you almost wish you could keep playing it a bit. But like they're the perfect size, the perfect length. The artwork timeless that we know, the music timeless as we know. And yeah, they could knock them out so much quicker, because it was technically open world in the sense as a world map, but it only took like a minute to go from one end of the world to the other. It was, very realistic.
Now it ended up being more like 7 because you got like 17 battles along the way, but
yes, that's without the battles, yeah, and without an airship. As soon as you got an airship,
or what was the item that got rid of? I don't think was it a Moogle Charm. I think was the anti-battle item.
I think it was the Moogle Charm. Yeah, no battles if you got that thing on.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, like we might see what that looks like, because Fantasia and Neo Dimension looks like that's kind of sort of what they're building there. Although, I don't think I have that many high hopes for it, because it's Square Enix in 2024, and also they're releasing it in December, which is usually not a good sign for most games when it's not, an indie game.
Yeah, it's not a great sign. I'm torn on the game. Nobuo Uematsu's on it, obviously, and that makes me very excited. But that doesn't guarantee it's going to be good, because...
I want it to be good because I'd like that to succeed, so Square goes, oh, so that works.
Yes. Yeah, I really do hope this succeeds. I hope it gets good reviews. It's a well-made game, and then I buy it and I play it, probably on my Steam Deck, and love life. That's my goal.
Yeah. Sounds like a great plan. So when we get to the next point where it finally transitions into 3D, and this is where it gets weird for me, because I never owned an original PlayStation, so I actually jumped all the way to 10 between 6 and then, and didn't play 7, 8, 9 until much later, when I realized, oh, I can put these CD, because again, I'm a dumb 13 or 14-year-old at the time. I'm like, oh, wait, I can just play the original PlayStation games in here? Fucking sick. All right, I'm on my way to EB Games right now. And sure enough, there we go. I look at those three, and none of them are bad. Actually, that's a lie. 8's kind of bad, but I don't have nearly the same fondness for those three. I think if I had to pick one out of the three of them, I'd pick 9, just because I think 9 tried to be a little different by being less on the broody loner edge and try to be a lot more light, a lot more jovial, at least for certain points of the game before it decides to turn on its head. But
9
I
is
think...
actually my...
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say 9 is actually my third favorite, believe it or not. That one actually...
I'm hoping that remake is real, because I want to go back and play it. Because yeah. I recently tried to go back and play it when it was brought back on PlayStation, and I don't know, I have a problem with some old games where I can't get myself to push through them. So hopefully a remake can at least give me a chance to kind of to go through it again with a set of new eyes. Because the little bits that I played story wise, I was okay with, but the gameplay wise just wasn't doing it anymore. So I really need something to kind of offset that, and having, obviously modern things like a fast forward option, and obviously, cleaner graphics, better way of moving around the map, voice acting, a lot of things that can kind of add on to that. In the same way that, remake made me enjoy 7 a lot more than what I did when I first played it back in the day. Because I look at the way that because 7 obviously is the top of the list for a lot of people. I think a lot of that just has to do with similarly how a lot of the times we'll say from our generation that 4 or 6 is the best ones, because it's what we started out with. And I think for a lot of people, 7 was the first one too, because that one was heavily marketed when that one was coming out. That was the first one that really had the machine behind it, and that really made a difference.
Yeah, and apparently it released worldwide, which I never realized Europe didn't get any before 7. So
well, and not to mention with the trailers, they were showing the cutscene graphics. So for a PlayStation game, it looked incredible, and then you play the game and went, "Why are her boobs triangles?"
Because it was the 90s. That's just how people looked. Okay.
Yeah, look, there was 2 things that we remember about those games: Tiva's boobs and Lara's boobs. So wait, I guess that's 4 things, but hey, that's a technicality there. But I don't think there's anything I've said before that I think the original 7's really overrated. It's not to say that it's a bad game per se. 8 is where I get into the range of, okay, you flew a little close to the sun, you tried some ideas that really didn't work. Because the junction system, it's hey, let's build something so that your stats are tied to magic. To which I go, okay, so kind of like how 6 was with the Espers. No, actually. You're just going to go to these random points in the ground that almost look like save points, and you'll grab some material out of it, but not enough to really do that much. Or you can fight things, and instead of fighting them, you can just hit draw over and over and over and over and over. Is this getting boring yet? And over until you have 99 Ultima once. And then you can use it there. And then you do this shit all over again.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the junction system, but I abused the hell out of it. I had very overpowered characters very early in the game. Not the first time I played it because I had no idea what I was doing. But when I revisited, I think it's when they released the game on Steam in like 2013 or something like that. I went back to play and I was like, well, now I know how this actually works. So I'm going to go and break it. And I did really very quickly. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can make Selfie look like a badass, just literally chain whipping the shit out of a dinosaur, you know? So, like, there's some great stuff with that. And granted, it did bring Triple Triad in. So, you know what? You give it props somewhere.
Best card game ever, still to this day.
And I mean,
well,
they honestly had a really good villain for 2/3 of the game. Until they did with Final... Okay, here's the first real vent with Final Fantasy. Square, what is it with you guys and having a villain in the last 2% of the game? Seriously.
It's
Ultimecia,
every single one of them. Yeah.
X-Death. Zeromus. Yu Yevon. I'm sure there's more I'm missing, but that's off the top of my head.
I won't give it to X-Death only because throughout that entire game they're talking about X-Death, and then that's who you kind of. But
you don't really see it. You don't really interact with them until the very end when you're like, "Oh, I'm fighting a tree."
Well, yeah, everybody knows trees are evil. Like that's obvious, Adam. Jeez.
No wonder we're trying to drill for oil all the time.
Yeah. Final Fantasy.
You know, when they say drill, baby, drill, they aren't talking about Edgar and his tools. You know, right? So.
Final Fantasy IX for me was definitely the worst. Like you have a villain the entire game. You're focused on that villain. You fight that villain.
And it's a good villain too.
Good villain. Very good villain. And it actually felt like, wow, I've had the same villain this whole game. And then all of a sudden, a random fucking god thing shows up.
Yeah, you know how much I've repressed that one? I'd forget their name.
I have no idea what the name is. I don't know, God. Anyways,
Google,
you kill God. And then you go back, and then you
Necron
the villains. Necron, sure.
That's a name.
Like, that's a name. That was like literally. It's not even the last 2% of the game. You're at the end of the game, and they just needed a villain for the end boss. And I think what was his name? Kuja? I think his name was like Kuja.
Yeah, there was a great final boss. His name was Kuja. Also, just do what you always do. Give him a 17th final form. I don't know.
Yeah, no. He like falls over and he's like,
it's like you gave Seymour, who isn't even the final boss of the game, 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Seymour had so many battles.
Yeah, Seymour had 4 boss fights in Final Fantasy X and still wasn't even close to the... Honestly, if he had been the final boss, it would have made a lot of sense because that guy was constantly sticking in your craw.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, Final Fantasy IX was the worst for that. I remember even as a teenager, I was like, who the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Why am I fighting this thing? Kuja, get up. Fight me. What is this?
Because, like, you look at it, Adeo was a really, really cool and imposing looking boss. And also, like, it's very rare to have females in that position, especially back in those days. Because, I mean, obviously you have, like, Cloud of Darkness, but really, like, it's an NES game. It really doesn't have that much value. I was going to say 4 doesn't have anything, 5 doesn't have anything, 6 doesn't have it, 7 doesn't really. I mean, there's Scarlet, but she doesn't really factor much into it compared to, say, what she does now in the remake.
Yeah.
But, like, 8 was really the first one where you kind of had, like a villain take center stage as a woman. And sure, it ends with a woman, but it's just not the same one. Because in typical fashion, they're like, well, actually, she was just being mind controlled by another person. I'm like, so it's Golbez again, but just an older woman. Cool.
Yeah. Well, older woman in the future. Yeah. Obviously, time travel was very important for the story.
Oh my god. Yeah, it was already bad enough that they went to space. These friggin' high school kids went to space.
Yeah. And then they went through time and space.
At least I do. I know there's not really that much logic to it, but I do appreciate that people tried to salvage it as best as they could with the whole theory that, like, as soon as Squall gets hit by the icicle, that it's actually just all in his mind and, like, he's dead. So it's just like his dream sequence of everything. I'm like, I mean, that would make sense for some of the really weird shit that suddenly starts happening at that point.
Yeah, that would make sense from some of it because that game definitely went off the rails. I think they were trying to go.
Well, yeah, it did. It went way off the rails because they went to space. That is well off a rail.
No rails.
Off the literal rails.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to make it big. And they were like, "Oh, we got to do something big. Like, well, what's big? Well, space."
Well, they were like, we got to do a flying thing at some point. Well, we already did an airship that was like a spaceship with 7, but wait, what if this one actually goes to space?
Yep. What if the first airship isn't an airship at all? It's a moving school. Done.
Yeah, Hogwarts, you got nothing on Balam Garden. Fuck you.
Yeah, stupid broom. That's nothing. Gonna take a whole castle at you, man.
We fight with a whip. Or a guy with his fists. Or a gun blade. How fucking cool is that?
Oh, the gun blade.
And then we have this bitch that fights with massive nunchucks and just talks about trains all the time.
Yeah, she did.
So she's back on. She's off the rails in her mind, but she's also on the rails.
Ah, yes, she is.
But then we move on to the PS2 era, and we finally get to where we start to see the modern games blend in, where we start seeing voice acting, obviously, like James Arnold Taylor. James Arnold Taylor, I think is his full name, that did Tidus.
I thought it was Yuri Lowenthal.
It sounds like it. Okay, yeah, it is James Arnold Taylor. Thank God. I was going to be really worried myself if I got that one wrong. At least I could tell Tara Strong was Riku. That's never going to leave my brain.
Oh, yeah.
But,
You'll never be able to not hear Tara there.
But, like, man, like, it was crazy to hear, because that was the first time I really ever heard voice acting in a game, because I didn't have a good enough PC to play some of the games that would have had it back then, like Half-Life and such. So that was the first time that I got, like, voice acting in a video game that wasn't, like, really, really bad, and almost like using like lines from movies like the 007 games like would for like The World Is Not Enough, for example, where it was just ripping files. But like, this is the one where it felt like the performances were genuine, except for Kamari, which is a different story. But
Kamari,
they definitely started changing things in a direction that at the time seemed like the next step forward. And then as we learned as time went on, having 3D graphics and starting to walk around much larger worlds and having, bigger dramatic storytelling with voice acting started to lead away from what was the core gameplay of those games, which is the turn-based RPG, because Final Fantasy X and X-2 essentially is the last of its breed, which is turn-based, because once you get into 12, it plays more like an MMO, and then once you get to 13, it's hit button, watch, and then hit button again and watch, and then 15 it goes full action. And like as we go between like 10 and 12, if we even just don't count 10-2 at all, the change from even just turn-based to MMO based, essentially, I remember being really put off by it the first time, although the Gambit system kind of offset it because it meant you could really optimize things. But like in retrospect, after playing Zodiac Age and finally finishing 12 properly for the first time, I can like every time I play 12 at all, I'm like, this is where it went off the rails. Like this is where it starts going down.
Yeah, definitely. It felt a lot more like, to me, if I had to describe it, a Final Fantasy management game. Like, where you're like, there's the soccer games football manager.
Yeah,
where you're actually just managing the teams,
baseball, all that jazz.
It felt like that because you weren't doing the battles. You were more figuring out how to set up gambits so that the characters all, being run by their AI or whatever would do what you needed them to do. So it was very much a management sim with an MMO walking around system and then a normal JRPG basically once you were in towns.
Yeah, I will say like 12, in my opinion, actually has quite possibly the coolest world, because Ivalice is just such an amazing place to the point that it's been used in several games, and they really didn't do anything with it. I've seen people try to make the Star Wars comparison to it, and you could probably like piece it together haphazardly with Red String, but you're in definitely conspiracy territory by how close it is, because it really isn't. Like, it's maybe on the surface kind of like that, but it really isn't at all. But, like, they did a really good job, I think, of giving characters that had meaning and having a much more different tone with, a much more European voice acting crew. and having a much more different like flavor to it, and in a lot of dialogue that you normally wouldn't hear because it was much more, bantery rather than being, just saying lines off a sheet to kind of progress the story. It really felt like they were having conversations and bringing up past traumas and things like that. So like that part was done really well, but then you actually play the story and go, you wrote like a quarter of a story and then forgot to finish it. Because like the entire story is the country got taken over by an empire. And the empire's guy is bad, maybe. We're probably missing like a bunch of content here.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely it felt like a longer game, but I feel like it was because of the MMO style maps. Like it wasn't the story that was long. It was the walking around forever, doing hunts, doing MMO things, basically MMO side quests.
Yeah.
Like that's what made the game
that was
feel
the other
so
thing too.
long.
There wasn't really side content to that game other than the hunts, and let's be real, the hunts were just fetch quests.
Yeah, all of the side content was fetch quests. That was the entire thing.
So it was really devoid of like what makes a good JRPG, which is, I mean, look at the Yakuza games. No matter what Yakuza game you plug in, every one of those games has side quests that are so fucking unique and so memorable. Whereas, a lot of games today, and that's honestly what really lives and dies with a JRPG. Aiden Chronicle does a fantastic job since you finished it. They do a fantastic job with, there aren't a lot of side quests, but when they do, there's always something unique about them. It's not always good, like obviously the Beyblade, that's not really the greatest part of it, but like the ones that you do get, including like little offset ones where you go into the castle to try to recruit Marcus, which is not even like a thing that, needs to be done, and leads to what is arguably like the coolest boss battle in the game. Which is you basically slapping the shit out of some giant devil lady's boobs because of the way the camera kind of angles it. But you're all fighting on chandeliers like you're doing your best Super Mario RPG impressions.
Yeah, they did that on purpose. That entire thing was
they definitely did. But like 12 was definitely that point where like they took a stab at things. This is also around the same time that they were just trying everything. Like Spirits Within, obviously, too, is it's a whole other conversation. Advent Children I'll still forgive because, at least it's characters that you like. So cool. You got voices to them now. And sure, it's great to have a scene where Sephiroth tells Cloud that he's got a present for him and just throws a fucking destructive building at him. So like there is something there. But, they definitely tried, I guess like 10, because it was finally at that age where like it was getting so popular. They're like, all right, we got to just do everything now. And they jumped the shark, much like a lot of companies will do. And I think from that point on, they never really recovered. Like 10-2 was fine. It still stuck to the formula. They tried bringing the job system back. I think they might have gone too far on a risk by just having only 3 party members. It meant they could have focused on them very well, but they didn't really do a good job of that. So it almost feels like it would have been better if they had added more people in there, like maybe as temporary characters in the same way that like 12 has temporary guest characters as well. Like maybe Lulu hops in for a little bit. You could still make a case of it being all female if you still want to go that path. There's plenty of people you could have pulled in there. Hell, LeBlanc, one of the new characters they introduced, could have like popped in as like a begrudging participant at some point. You have old characters like Lucille from the Jose Knights you could have pulled in there. Or what was I think it was Donna was like one of the other summoners on the journey. Like you had other people you could pull from, and they just decided, okay, it's going to be Riku and Yuna. Cool. Like both of them, especially because you made Yuna actually way more interesting instead of just being, religious girl following in her father's footsteps for most of the game. But then they bring in Pain, who feels like the Squall stand-in.
Yeah, it was literally somebody cosplaying as Squall.
Like,
that was
her blade
her
was
character.
almost like the gunblade to a T, just without the revolver part to it.
Yeah. Her
She
outfit
had
was
about
even
as many
similar.
belts.
Yeah, the belts. Like
So, like, and I will say, like, I will defend that game still, because I think it's so much more fun to play than others, because it does something that most JRPGs refuse to do, which is just be stupid the entire time. Because that's really what 10-2 is. It's just stupid in the way that Yakuza is stupid, but then gets serious. Yeah. So they do all that really, really well. I mean, I don't know what you think, Chris, but like, I really do feel like 10 is the last good one. Like you can say like others are passable, but I think 10 really is like the last part where it gets like remotely good.
I would say 10 is the last like golden era Final Fantasy game. I do like 12, but it's when it does start showing its faults. The MMO system is not my favorite at all. Again, it's more of a management.
If
game
12
to
had
me.
had a turn-based combat system, I think I would still love 12 even despite its story faults.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because it's like they tried stuff with the story, but at least you could forgive them for that if it was an enjoyable
Because I mean, like
turn-based
out
game.
of all the cast members, who's the weakest one? To which I can go, I mean, it's Penelo, but like it's not like Penelo's bad. Penelo's just a case of she's just there. Whereas like there, like everyone can almost in every JRPG where there's like more than 5 characters, you can name one that you'd be like, I don't like this one. I don't have that at all. Balthier is amazing. Fran is amazing. Bosch is amazing. Ash is amazing. Vaughn, honestly, is people shit on Vaughn. Vaughn is great because he's basically us in the game.
Yeah.
And we're kind of like he's our proxy.
Yeah, 100%. It's like he's just there. And he's like, whoa, okay, cool, let's do it. Like he's just
like he's us walking around and tying everything together.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. 13, I do like 13. Like going back and playing it, I do have nostalgia for it because I do really like the music. And I do like the characters sometimes. I know that's weird to say.
It depends on who they are. Like visually, I like them a lot. Like I do think Fang is really fucking cool. Lightning, despite the fact that as an actual personality, is just dog shit. But like visually, fantastic. Saz, really, really cool. Like it's almost got the Baby Yoda energy with the little chocobo, except the character itself didn't really get done well. But like once you get past looks and design, they aren't that interesting for the most part.
No, and my issue with 13 is it really did feel it went from like our complaint about games getting too big, like 12 massive maps, MMO style, to all of a sudden just like a hallway. And I was like,
and
okay,
hallways with like, because old JRPGs used to be like that. They were dungeons with just small hallways that were very linear mostly. But when you got into a fight, you did things.
yeah,
Whereas 13, they're like, hit the button, they'll start fighting, and if you need to change it, you hit this button, and then you watch. And when I played it, like, initially I'm like, oh, this is kind of neat. And then 10 minutes later, I went, oh, I'm watching a video game.
Yeah, you don't do the battles. My issue with the hallways, excuse me, is yeah, in dungeons, that's very much what Final Fantasy was, the hallways, right? But it seems like instead of having this world where you enter dungeons, you just like the first 11 chapters of the game or 10 chapters of the game are a dungeon, basically. Finally, it opens up only to go back to the dungeon and finish off the game. When it gets to that like open area, that one and only open area in that game, I love that area. And I think that's why I still have nostalgia for the game, because just being there and doing battles, and yeah, obviously it's like you're not doing the battles, but seeing the visualness that it could be in those characters.
It is a beautiful
cool
game.
Music. Yeah, beautiful there. And that's the nostalgia. But if you're like, oh, the final boss, wasn't that fun? No, I don't really think it was. Some of those hallway scenes, were they fun? No, not really. Like, again, it was all like, we're under attack. We're under attack. We're under attack. There's soldiers here. Quick, run. We're all under attack. Just
Yeah, it's just definitely one of those games where like it seems like they had a good proof of concept and then just decided that again they were going to take another risk. Like it feels like a game that if they really wanted to do action combat so bad, they should have just gone with it and just had like a really bad action combat game, because it was going to not play very well to begin with, and it just got to a point where they weren't ready for it yet. And obviously we found out with 15, while they rushed that out the door, they definitely weren't ready with it because the cameras and that were really, really bad. Like 13-2 is fine. Like, at least with the time travel stuff, it started feeling like really silly, like a Jean-Claude Van Damme level, like sort of like action plot. So it was dumb, but at least there was something fun about it. I still am amazed that I made it through that game because, again, that combat system is just not fun to play. But I still managed to finish that at least. And then Lightning Returns, as soon as they said what it was, I'm like, I'm not playing a Final Fantasy game that has Dead Rising mechanics in it. The idea of a JRPG is to be able to finish everything, and you're telling me that I won't be able to do that? You're not a JRPG then. Go to hell.
Yeah, I have never played that one either. So actually, I said I've played every mainline Final Fantasy. The one, I guess that could be considered mainline, Lightning Returns, is the only one I haven't played. I guess I should say that.
Now we haven't really talked much about the MMOs. Were you big into either of them? Because I've played a tiny bit of 11, and I've played maybe up to like level 65, 70 of the free trial. So, and I think you've played a little bit more though.
For 14, I played through the main game and the first expansion, Heavensward. I love the game. It's just I keep buying the expansions, but because you have to pay to get in there and play monthly. I just know that I have other games, so I keep saying like, oh, I'll do that as soon as there's like a little, dark period in games. I haven't had one in years. So
yeah,
I have
gonna
the
happen
expansions.
now.
Yeah, like I'm ready to go in there, and I think I just need to actually decide like I'm not going to play anything else for 2 months. I'm just going to play Final Fantasy 14 and continue with the story. Yeah,
and then
11.
we get on to the problem children. The real problem children. 15 and 16. So 15, we know automatically why it was the way that it was. It had gone through so much different turmoil. It was originally supposed to be Final Fantasy 13 Versus and changed over time. From what I remember correctly, between the time they finally decided it was going to be 15 and when it was out the door was 2 years. And we think, well, yeah, like Square used to be able to punch out gem after gem in 2 years. That they weren't this big. And they didn't take this much effort to do. And you can tell where the effort was because in the beginning of the game, sure, the story's but like the characters themselves were amazing. Like the boy band, the Backstreet Boys of Final Fantasy was pretty goddamn fun to play as. The side characters are pretty interesting. Like Aranea comes to mind immediately as being like a fucking badass. The areas you went to were cool. Being able to just drive around in a car and listen to old school Final Fantasy music on the radio was just a nice touch. The side missions here and there were good, like a random cup noodle advertisement actually ended up being kind of decent. So like they had some great ideas. And then you get on a boat and it goes all down waterfall from there.
Oh god, it was so bad. Yeah, it was like still visually stunning when that was happening. But I remember thinking like, wait, what is happening? I feel like the game just got taken away from me. And then it did. It became
Metal Gear Solid for some reason for a minute. And you're like, I'm playing a Final Fantasy game still, right? This isn't like somebody didn't overwrite the disc and like hack another game into this, right? Because like, and look, it's old enough now that I can kind of spoil it. Creators of 15, if you want us to care about characters when they die, like Luna Freya, you should probably give us more than 15 minutes with them.
Yeah, her passing meant nothing to me. I was like, oh, she was pretty, and then she was gone. Like
my first thought was, okay, it's not Aranea or Iris or Iris. I'm like, or Sydney. Cool. I have no issues with this. I'm supposed to. I didn't realize I was supposed to care about this.
Wasn't it the main character's Noctis's fiance or something too? Like what?
It's like, I'm supposed to care. Well, surely they'll give me a reason to. I'm doing a stealth section now for some reason. And again, like a villain where, and I've seen a lot of people try to defend Arden. And I think it's more like it's the sympathetic villain stuff, which is like a really like it's the Arden did nothing wrong sort of vibe. To which I go, okay, but like you still don't care about him.
Not at all.
So really, what are you fighting? You're fighting, like guns or airships that drop soldiers on you. Like that's the most that you're really fighting and caring about because you're like, you're getting in the way of my boy band journey, you bastards. And then that's really it.
Yeah. And they kept adding more story, but as DLC,
Oh my god,
which really
I've
pissed
still
me
never
off.
played them, and I don't think I ever will at this point.
I played one, and it was the more beefy guy with the sword. I don't remember his name.
Gladiolus, I think.
Yeah,
Because of what
I
it
played
was.
his.
Not okay. I actually remember all 4 of them, which is surprising. Noctis, Ignis, Gladiola or Gladiolus, and Prompto. I'm actually surprised I remember all 4 of them.
Yeah, I remembered Noctis. That's it. But yeah, because you'd play the game and something would happen, like not even at the end of the story, like chapter 3 or something. Gladios or whatever his name is would disappear for one night and then come back. And it's like, where were you? And it's like, oh, I'll tell you one day. And then all of a sudden, buy this DLC. Where was he?
As if it was not any further obvious that they rushed it out the door.
Like the point of a JRPG is their side quests. Like, show the side quest. Don't make me buy the side quest. Show the side quest. It comes with the game. What are you doing? And it was not good. Like, I would not have, if I had known, I think I got like an edition that came with everything because it's when it released on PC.
Oh, you probably got the Royal Edition then.
Yeah, I think it is just like by default the Royal Edition. I would have not paid money for any of the DLC. I only played that one and then a little bit of the second one with Prompto. It had its
faults, but like 30 hours in, it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
It was a good proof of concept for an action RPG. Like, honestly, if they used that formula a second time, it could have worked. And then they decided they wanted to be Game of Thrones, but not actually good.
I don't hate 16.
I do.
I prefer 16 over 15, believe it or not. But
that's like preferring a kidney stone over, consistent diarrhea,
You have a point. A very good point, actually. Yeah, because 16 is good for me. I liked a lot of parts of it. There was a lot of parts I liked, but then there was also a lot of like, where's a world map or something? Like, why do I have to walk from the one end of this place all the way to the end of this other place? And it's just empty space with some trees and some bushes and whatever, and like enemies. And I get it. It's supposed to be like, oh no, it's more immersive because it's like you're actually walking through the world. But I remember having to do some quests where I was constantly going back to places I already visited, which is fine. You do that in JRPGs. But then I would go back there and I'm like, I don't want to be here again because now they're asking me once again to leave and go back out into that open world over here. And it had a lot of that like MMO fetch quest kind of stuff. And I did not like that at all. It
definitely played much like a lot of the games that we struggle with now, where there's too much nothingness out there, and then any content that is in these areas is not worth anything. It's what we see with Rebirth, where there's a lot of world out there, and it looks beautiful. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Like, the worlds in these games are beautiful to look at, but to play in them is a different story. Like, if this was a VR experience and you were just walking around, that'd be a fucking amazing thing to do, but not as a game. And on top of that, I mean, for me personally, a story that was meant to be dark and gritty, which, in my opinion, didn't even do that well. But, like, it's dark and gritty. They put in a bunch of characters that, in my opinion, don't really have any interest and don't really do anything. And, like, I don't know how far I got overall, but, like, by the time that I quit, I'm, like, 15, 20 hours in, and I'm going, who am I supposed to like here? Because, like, I know it's supposed to be Clive, but Clive is just a short-haired guy with a sword and a dog. Like, I like the dog, and that's about as much as I got here. Like, even if you're trying to go with, like, the waifu bait, Jill doesn't really do that very well either. Like, the only interesting person was, not Bernadette, but what's her name? For the blonde chick at the start.
Oh, Beatrix? No, that's Final Fantasy 9. It was similar to that.
I know I'm in the right sort of vein with Bernadette, but like people know. And like she was interesting because she was like maniacally evil. Like she was chaotic evil. It made sense. So it was something to go after. And then she's gone very quickly. So you're like, cool. We're back to, it's the Game of Thrones king with lots of power who just isn't a child and, whatever. Like, it's just another jacked up dude who's super evil. It's like, okay, cool. Here's insert villain name here, number 7,855.
Yeah, the final boss, and just in case of spoilers, I won't say who it is and stuff. It's not surprising if you've played it, but if you haven't played it, I just don't want to spoil. Was I had no connection. I did not care about this final boss whatsoever. Like they were too much on the sidelines, too much like from the shadows doing stuff to the point where I was like, I don't even hate this boss. Like, yeah, they're making me fight them, and I hate the fact that that's happening, but I do not care about this final boss. Like, it means nothing to me. And the game definitely overstayed its welcome, too. I did.
There's
really
so much they
enjoy
could
the
have eased up
beginning of
on
it.
it. Like the combat, if they had just made you like 50% stronger, it would have been great. Because sometimes fights take way too long.
Yeah, they made it way too Dark Souls health spongy, for sure. I felt
Well,
that
Dark
throughout
Souls,
the entire
like
thing.
bosses are spongy, but like main enemies usually aren't. They're usually 2 to
Oh, yeah,
3
true.
hits and they're done. You just don't gotta
Yeah.
get hit. In that game, you're hitting a basic wolf like 40 times.
Yeah. Yeah, the battles were, I didn't mind the combat, but I did not like the ratio of like my strength versus their health. It was way off.
Because, like, look,
Way
I don't
off.
care who you are. If you're just a wolf or a plant monster, if I hit you with the sword more than 3 times, it's going to deal some damage. It's like,
Yeah, like,
unless
you're
I'm
dead.
literally hitting you with the flat part at 2 kilometers an hour, maybe. But it's the sharp part, and it's a full swing that's supposed to cut into things.
Yeah. I think with me with Final Fantasy 16 is, say it was, I don't know, 60 or 70 or 80 hours. The first like 20, 30 hours, I loved what was happening. I loved the settings. I loved what was happening. But then it did one of those things that some games do. Dragon Quest does this all the freaking time, where all of a sudden it almost feels like you're at the end of a game. And then all of a sudden it's like, nope, that was kind of the intermission going into the next chapter. Here's a brand new hideout, and you're like starting from scratch. And, here's the next arc of the story. And it's like, what the hell? It's another 30-hour arc. Like, it did feel way too long. Whereas I almost feel if it was just that first part that I really loved, and then maybe like another 10 hours so that they had time to flesh out like an ending, I probably would have loved it a lot more, where the game was like a 30 to 40 hour game in total, where this story played out and was finished by then. Because the fact that I skipped a lot of stuff and it still took me like 60 plus hours to beat that game was insane to me. Like, it did not make sense why a story should take that long to tell if I'm not doing most of the optional stuff. That's a huge part of it where they lost it for me, and I blame the battles too for that. The too big of an open world type of walking around, and battles, even the simple ones, like you said, once you're in them, like everything is a health sponge. And God forbid you go to a boss. The final boss was a pain in the ass because you had to just it takes something like 40 minutes to beat the final boss because it's just health sponge. And it's just like, go. And I get that they're going for something epic, this epic final battle. But it's like, tone it down. Make it 10 minutes, not 40. Like, come on. If I die, what's going to happen? Do I got to do the last 29 minutes again? Like, oh.
So the last thing I want to do before we kind of cap this off here is talk about a couple of the side ones. I mean, Tactics obviously comes to mind immediately. I didn't actually play much of the original. Advance is the one that I really spent most of my time in. And I still love that game to death. I think, like, graphically, like, it's just such a cute game to play. And honestly, it's like a really cool idea because it's almost like an isekai before isekai anime was really a thing. It's you getting brought into a book, so you end up being part of the world that, of the stories you're reading, which I think was a really cool idea. And had this like almost Saturday morning cartoon sort of vibe to it.
I never played very much, at least, of the Tactics Advance games. I only had a Game Boy Advance for a little while, and I bought it used well after the Game Boy Advance no longer actually was a thing. Or at least it was near the end of its life cycle, because I don't think the DS might have been out, but I didn't have that yet. But I did play through the original Tactics, and it's one of my most anticipated games that I want to come to Steam. It's like that and Xenogears, like the two of them are hand in hand. because that one was obviously very different from the advanced one, very serious. But the thing is it played out this extremely serious, almost too confusing plot for Games of Thrones before Game of Thrones. But it did it really well. And it was dark and like people getting stabbed and dying when you think they're your friends and that kind of stuff. And I absolutely loved it. Like it was a very different tone. And it went back to that medieval time, right? Plus, obviously, just the first tactic.
Yeah, I mean, Evil East being such a great setting.
Yeah, exactly. So just, so beautiful. So good.
Did you play Crystal Chronicles at all? Because I never did. I didn't have a GameCube.
No, I had a GameCube. Again, bought it well after the GameCube was actually a thing, but I never picked up that game. I pretty much only grabbed the GameCube to play a few first-party Nintendo games.
I know a lot of people will trash this game, but I will still say Dirge of Cerberus Final Fantasy VII is low-key actually pretty fucking fun for what it was.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's another one I just never got around to.
Where's that remaster Square that no one's clearly asking for?
Yeah.
We'll probably get that before a new Chrono game.
Oh, we would. Definitely we would. It's a Final Fantasy VII game, right? Yeah, I never played that one. When it came to PS2, I had Final Fantasy X. I had 10 too, but for some reason, I think I was bored of Final Fantasy VII. I was like, why is there like a PSP game coming out? And I didn't have a PSP. And like, what is this Vincent game coming on PS2? Like, why are we like beating the crap out of this Final Fantasy VII?
I almost feel like it now needs to come out because now that it's involved in the 7 storyline again, because they brought it back with remake. I'm like, oh man, we need this back now. Like maybe that'll be the new DLC. It'll be like a sort of Dirge of Cerberus game with Vincent.
Maybe, because it would make sense. Like they remastered Crisis Core, which was that PSP game I was actually just talking about. And I think they did that because obviously that ties on a lot to Final Fantasy VII Remake. That was another side game that I didn't actually play until they remastered it. So
I think it might actually be available on the premium store if you have PlayStation when you want to play the backwards catalog, but obviously no one gets premium anymore, so it's kind of not really an option. But
yeah, there's other ways to get it. No, but if that one came out, there was some sort of a remaster of Dirge, I would definitely pick it up. I'd want to give it a look. And obviously there'd be some quality of life improvements and stuff, obviously, that Square likes to do. So yeah, I'd be interested in picking that one up because I'd want to see now the connections that are in remake.
Yeah. I was about to say Dirge Cerberus again. Dissidia, I thought was a really cool idea, and then we don't talk about the newest one that they did for PS4. It's very, very bad. But like the original one was fucking fantastic because it just came out of left field. And we're like, oh my god, I can have Terra fight Golbez. I can have Tidus fight like Kefka. Fuck yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, that was very cool. Because I think there was 2 that were good.
Yeah,
and they were both on the
first 2. I think it was that one.
PSP?
What was it, like Dissidia 012, I think?
012, yeah. Obviously, it's the second game, so it's 012.
Yeah, that's the one.
But yeah, those were good. And they were very cool. I was very into those. I very much enjoyed playing them. I love them. But yeah, I never got around to the PS4 one. I think that's even on Steam. And when I was looking into it, it was just a horrible mess. It was like mostly like microtransactions or something, wasn't it? I don't know. There was something about it I remember being very put off by. It felt more like a gacha game than an actual like just Dissidia game.
All right, we're gonna end off with three fun questions. So get ready to painstakingly have to answer these. So first one, what do you think is the most underrated game altogether that has a Final Fantasy in its name? Because to me, the answer is Mystic Quest, and it's just because people really look at it like it's a baby game. When it's like, this is a game that if you really want to introduce people to JRPGs, this is the perfect one to do it. And if they even did a pixel remaster of that, I would be so stoked to replay
I'd pick it up instantly.
And especially if Square Enix, with their amazing way of just making music top notch every single time, I want them to remake that game just so they can properly re-record that fucking soundtrack.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's one of the Final Fantasies that's never been re-released outside of the Super Nintendo. I did actually play through Mystic Quest this year. I got it on my Steam Deck because that's the only way you can freaking play it anymore. And I played through the entire thing. And I love it. Like, obviously I breezed through it. I've done it a few times now. It's easy, but like I love that. I love going through that game. The music is the most, like the forest music, the final area music, the temple music, like all of them. But I would agree, and I was going to say, like, most underrated, I would have to go with Mystic Quest. It's the only one that truly makes sense, I think, for that answer.
You are given one piece of music from Final Fantasy, and is for the rest of your life, it is the only piece of music you can listen to. Which one is it?
Paris theme from Final Fantasy VI, maybe? I think I got to go that one, yeah. Oh, that's so hard. Come on, man. I've gone to the Final Fantasy concert numerous times because how much I love all the music.
I'd have to go with Choose Anarchin from Final Fantasy X.
Oh, that's a good one, too. Yeah. I don't know, Terra's theme, just something about like the opening of 6 with that music. Oh.
And I'm sorry, people. I know Battle on the Big Bridge is really good too, but like.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Oh, or even just the overworld music for Final Fantasy IX. Oh, so many good nostalgic music moments. Oh.
And then you get to make the all-time party of 4. If we just go from like our favorite games are always 4. Well, I guess 5 or not 5. 4 did 5, but 6 had 4, and that's what I'm going off of here. You have an all-star party of your 4 top characters, and this doesn't have to include just mainline of any Final Fantasy game. If you had to build your all-time party of 4, who are you going to put in?
So I already know this answer, and that's because that theater rhythm game, the music one.
Oh, that's what I forgot to give you 10 seconds to talk about the Attribution.
Oh God, it's so good. Like it's just about the music, which is probably my favorite thing about Final Fantasy. But you have to pick a party of 4. Now you don't get to pick from all the different games at first because you'll play the music for Final Fantasy VI. It'll give you characters from Final Fantasy VI. You have to build a party of 4 from that. But then after it opens up just like endless mode, or well, not endless mode, like pick a song and pick any party so you can mix and match. And there was some DLC for that game I bought where it was like Xenogears music and stuff like that, which was really good. I could make any party I wanted, and I did. So it was Cecil as a paladin.
I was about to say Dark Knight or Paladin.
As a paladin, Edgar from Final Fantasy VI. Zidane from Final Fantasy IX, and Benjamin from Mystic Quest.
Nice.
Or whatever. I think that was the main character's name, technically. But the main character from Mystic Quest, in case I have that name wrong, but I think it's something like Benjamin or Benji or something like that.
All right. So my party is very simple.
Yep.
It's Sid from 6. Or sorry, Sid from 4. Sid from 9 or Sid from 7. Okay, I can't, because I don't even think there's 4 playable Sids. Damn it, doesn't work. Immediately I put Riku and Yuffie together because I need what people consider to be 2 of the most annoying characters possible. They need to be together. That is my must. And then if I'm gonna even out gender wise and throw 2 guys in there. So to even that out, who are 2 grumpy old men I can throw in there? So I'm gonna throw Tella in there.
Tella, he's grumpy.
And then
another grumpy old man character.
I'm gonna throw in Steiner.
Steiner, fuck man, that guy's so funny.
So you know what? I'm changing out Tell and putting in Cyan. So it's 2 guys that are still like very good at fighting, but they would be so put off with the hijinks of Riku and Yuffie. That is my entertainment party if I ever had one.
That is a good party.
Now, if I'm actually going like badass, it would be like Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Fang. I really do think Fang is one of the cooler characters they've had in a long time.
Oh, very cool.
I might actually go because Beatrix is a part-time character at some point in 9, and Beatrix is really fucking cool.
She's very cool. Cool eye patch.
If I put one more cool motherfucker, Orin. I almost didn't put Orin in there. Oh my god, that was close. Yeah, no, that's my party of badasses.
He spends the entire time talking to the party about how it's their story, and they're like, "What are you talking about, man? What story?" God, that game insane.
I mean,
the word story.
you could also have the mascot party. I mean, like right off the top of my head, you have Mog immediately. You throw in Vivi.
Yeah.
You throw in Kate Sith.
Yeah.
And then who would be our fourth?
That's tough. What was another one that had a like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 didn't? Mog showed up in 6. Yeah.
I think the correct answer is Hope because it's funny.
I was gonna say Red 13 maybe, but he's not much of a mascot. He's too badass to be mascotty. But yeah, I like your choice.
Yeah, that fourth spot's hard actually.
Guys, so many cool teams and matchups that you could make.
But either way, I think that covers everything. So yeah, hopefully. We say this every time a Final Fantasy game is on the horizon again. Hopefully the next one will be the good one.
It will be. 17's it's like when the Leafs win the cup. 17's going to be ours, man. It's the one.
So what you're saying is we're not going to get a good one till Final Fantasy 67.
Yeah. Probably. And then at that point, is it really a Final Fantasy? I know we're already pushing it, but holy hell.
You know what? Actual final question. If Square came out and announced the next Final Fantasy mainline game and it was turn-based combat, would you trust them? Because my initial reaction would be, what's the catch?
My initial reaction, oddly enough, and I don't know why. Actually, no, I think I do know why. It would depend on the graphics. And I know that's a weird answer, but it's because anytime Square has put out a game where they tried to do 3D graphics and it was turn-based, like I Am Setsuna and stuff like that. They've been okay. They've been good, but not like overly memorable. But anytime they've gone like the 3D, 2D way, where it's like Octopath Traveler and that kind of approach, it's been good. Like I've actually felt they did a really good job. So it's almost like I trust the team doing the pixel graphics turn-based, but if they go full 3D and like assets and stuff like that, I'm worried that it's just not going to be as good because for some reason the ones that had 3D textures and were turn-based didn't hit as well. So that's my answer. So it's weird. If I saw like, oh yeah, we're going to do a new turn-based game, it's called whatever, it's in the Octopath Traveler, engine or the Triangle Strategy engine or this Dragon Quest 3 engine, yeah, I'm in. Like I think they'll do an amazing job. But
what's really going to be interesting? I don't think there's a firm date for it yet, but I know it's supposed to potentially be next year. I'm really looking forward to seeing how well Claire Obscure Expedition 33 does, which is that Western fantasy-based, turn-based RPG that was shown.
Yeah.
I think it was at Xbox's thing.
Yeah, I think that was at Xbox's.
But like, I look at that and go, if that does really well, that opens the door. I think. Because Square is very much in the camp of what's working right now. And if there's a really popular turn-based RPG, they'll go, that's our thing. You can't do that. Because what have they been chasing for the longest time? Action RPGs.
Yeah.
And they're failing at it still, as far as I'm concerned. So like if somebody encroaches on their turf, because Persona does, but Persona doesn't do their graphics. Expedition 33 does.
Yeah.
That could be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like Square, the only reason they did Octopath Traveler and stuff like that is because they saw like the indie scene almost and how well those were being kind of receptive.
Yeah, they saw some of their ground being taken away.
Yeah, so they were like, well, I guess we could have people on the side doing like a pixel graphics, but on a 3D plane, and we'll make it turn-based. And those are like some of the highest rated. I mean,
Square games is it any coincidence that suddenly all of these really good turn-based indie JRPGs are coming out, and now Fantasia Neo Dimension is just happening to be a thing?
Yeah. Or Dragon Quest 11, that it was a full 3D game. They literally remade the entire game. You can switch at any point into the graphics of like freaking pixels.
Yeah.
And I played through like 6 hours of the game like that. It was amazing. And you can switch on the fly. I think you had to talk to somebody, but even they were like, I mean, we've got a turn-based game here. We probably should have the graphics look kind of like they were old because the system is so old. And it's like, you guys are so dumb. Dragon Quest 11 was amazing because of this. Maybe too long, And again, too many arcs, but like, oh my god, great battle system.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for joining us on the finally getting to do the all Final Fantasy podcast. Sorry, Kaylan, this is what happens when you don't show up. Hope you guys enjoy this. So obviously, if you are listening to this on any audio platform, if you can give us a rating, do so. If you can leave a comment, do so. Obviously, share with all your friends. Same goes to you folks here on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Don't forget the link tree as well, linktr.ee/PixelPlay Podcast. Link to our socials, link to our Discord, all that jazz. Like we said at the top of the show, Friday is not going to be a recap just because there really isn't the kind of news for it, but I will be playing I think the video's going to be about like 30-40 minutes of me playing Slacker's Carts of Glory. It was a fun time. Totally, I think you guys should check that out. And then Monday, we're going to have our side quests. We are going to be talking about Sean Layden and his comments about how the AA game industry is basically gone, which is hilarious. But hey, that is something to look forward to on Monday. All of these post up at noon Eastern on all 3 of those days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So, with that being said, you guys enjoy the rest of your day wherever you may be. Take care. Bye-bye for now.